Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation, and today I've got a very special guest, Martin Popoff, author, Brave Words, Sea of Tranquility, and the Contrarians. How's it going, Martin?
Pretty good, pretty good. Looking forward to this. Don't get to talk about the Damned very often.
Oh, fantastic. We're going to rank the
Yeah.
Dam, all the 11 albums, from lowest as we regard it to our number one pick. I've been looking forward to this. It's been a bit of a gas just exploring the discography of the Damned. And maybe just to kick things off, Martin, tell us about your earliest recollection or how you first got into the Damned, or your earliest memory of the Damned.
Wow. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I suppose I got into the Damned. The first punk album I believe I ever got was that French New Wave compilation. So, the first punk albums really are 77. Yeah, I might have had a Ramones album or something before that, but I mean, I almost don't even consider that official punk in the same way that I consider, the UK stuff. I don't know why. But honestly, I can't remember if that's the case. But anyways, the French New Wave compilation had the Damned kicking off the very first side of it, and it was I think it was New Rose on that. But then very quickly, I mean, I had the debut album in 77 and every album after that. And I remember when I got Music for Pleasure, I always can never remember exactly which album it was. It was either Music for Pleasure or Motorhead Overkill. But I remember being on one of those trips to Spokane, Washington, and going through the racks at Strawberry Jams and seeing it and just leaping up and almost hitting my head, letting out a yelp and almost hitting my head on this big wooden beam above because it had very low ceilings, right? But yeah, I remember, but I do distinctly remember seeing Music for Pleasure and just trying to focus on that Barney Bubbles cover and going, what is it? Is this a new Damned album? Wow.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. But yeah, so essentially had the Damned from day one, and I don't recall getting too many of the singles at the time, but it was
Yep.
every album upon release.
Cool. I got into the Damned in a different sort of way. I was familiar with Eloise, which was a huge hit around the world, and that played all the pop shows. I think 1985, 86, and I saw a band that came out to Australia which made a real impact on me called the Cramps. And in the audience, there was every second person was wearing a Damn t-shirt because it was a very goth type audience. And I guess I did a little bit of the people I was hanging with, they really grooved on the Damn. And out of that, I sort of discovered their catalog. And a guy gave me a mixtape, and it was just unbelievable. It was all their greatest hits from start to 1986. I saw them live in the sort of the Anything tour, and I'll talk more about that. And I've just loved them ever since. And they're probably one of my top 5 bands, and they've been firmly in my wheelhouse, and I just love them to pieces. So no, it's a real gas that I've got you on the show. And yeah, why don't we just rank them? And I don't think there's any truly, I'll put a disclaimer, I don't think there's really any truly stinker albums of the Damned. It's sort of probably some that are less than others, but see what you have to say. So
Okay, so one at a time.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right. So
Round
my
robin.
first one, it kind of really pains me to say this because again, Damned are definitely one of my top 5 bands of all time as well. I hope that lines up with what I did on Sea of Tranquility a couple weeks ago, where we did rank our favorite bands. But I'm pretty sure I had them super high in this situation. But yeah, I have also said many times, probably over the last 20 years, it might be the band I've played the most of all time. So I love the Damned, but unfortunately, I have to put their latest album at the bottom. I'm really not happy to do this, but there's just something about this record where a couple things bother me about it. I feel like the Tony Visconti production is really behaved and conservative, and not mellow enough at the light end and not heavy and, you know, electrocuted and punky and chaotic enough at the heavy end. And the performances are kind of sedate as well. And just song after song are in this weird zone where I'm not liking the melodic direction of them in an odd way, if that makes any sense. Like I'm not loving any of the songs. I'm like liking them kind of all, but not loving too much on it. So the production, it just feels really corporate for some reason, very safe. And it really does bother me to say that, because I mean, I got to interview the guys for the album as well. And I love this whole concept. I mean, you know, the whole old horror movie thing. But yeah, so this one, I'm just, you know, I'd play it and I'd go song after song, go, yeah, okay. And just not, you know, really taken into the fiber of my DNA, any of the songs on it. So yeah, that's my bottom of the pile.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we're going to disagree as we go along, but that's all part of the fun. Yeah, okay. My bottom of the pile is Not of This Earth, which is also AKA known as I'm All Right, Jack and the Beanstalk.
Promo of it, and then
yeah, so
weird Obi on it.
Yeah, it's I think it's a bit too straight ahead rock for me. The Damned have a very broad musical palette, and I think it's a little bit too conventional. Dave's voice is croontastic as always. He's still channeling Scott Walker and all that sort of stuff. And Rat Scabies' drumming is always welcome. He's like the X factor in the Damned. I always love when Rat's on the drums and you got those little surf, you know, drum fills and etc. But this album to me, it's a little bit safe. I know Dave Allen did the production and he's done The Cure and Sisters of Mercy. But yeah, I think out of their catalogue, where I mean, out of all the punk and the class of 77, Martin, they're probably, in my opinion, the most musically adventurous. They've got the biggest canvas. This album is a little bit safe and a little bit, you know, sort of straightforward rock for me. And that's my bottom of the pile, Not of This Earth. But doesn't mean it's a bad album.
Yeah. Okay. My number 10 is also Not of This Earth. And, you know, I feel like, so a little bit of the backstory in this. Yeah, it has that other title and cover, Jack and the Beanstalk, I'm All Right, something like that.
Yeah.
And then this is essentially the artwork that is used on that. So it's on the center thing. And this is the one where, you know, Dave participated on it. You know, there's the uneasy truce with Rat's driving the whole process. Alan Lee Shaw is a big part of it as well. He's a writer on it. And this is the one where, so Dave participates and he's on there and it sounds perfectly like a Damned album, but then he kind of stepped away from it and calls it unofficial and says, I didn't like the way it came out and I don't really, I regret being part of it, kind of thing. So there's this weird bad blood on the record, but you know, as long as you've got Dave's voice on there, it's going to sound like a Damned album. And of course, yeah, Rat, you're right, Peter. I mean, Rat does a great job on it. I mean, I find it to be a pretty heavy rockin' album as well. You know, no Damned album is completely safe because they do so many different things all the time. So, you know, safe isn't really a word that would come to mind for me on it. It's just another big collection of Damned songs. And yeah, you're right. They might second guess themselves and say, oh, you know, there's certain things expected of the Damned and we're going to do that on it. But I think for that reason as well, it just does sound like a spirited Damned album. So that's my number 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Rat Scabies' drumming is just sublime. And whenever there's a lineup change, Martin, I'm always secretly wishing that he gets back in the band. And I know that they're reuniting. They're doing special dates, which has been postponed over because of COVID. But the original four are getting back together, which is fantastic. But in the back of my mind, I would always love that, you know, Rat to get behind the on the stool and get behind the lads, because I think he's, you know, one of the heart and soul of the Damned. His drumming is just you know, really, really good.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
My next one is So Who's Paranoid of 2008. This is an interesting album to me. When I was thinking about the Damned, I was thinking a lot of their stylistically or sonically, they were probably Britpop before Britpop, Martin. You know, this album is a very, it's got a lot of variety. It's got music hall, it's Baroque. One of the unkind critic from The Guardian said that it's about as punk rock as Prime Minister David Cameron. So I don't think it would be terribly complimentary, but it's one of their more poppy albums. Captain Sensible's on it, and he's just, you know, I love his writing. His palette is just so wild when it comes to melody. Some of the arrangements can be a bit tad ponderous, like they do a tribute to Syd Barrett on Dark Asteroid. I don't really groove on that. The production's sparkling. Vanian is really croontastic on this. Yeah, I think the strongest track is probably Made to Pleasure. That has a strong groove, but yeah, that's probably my second rising up the charts. So who's Paranoid?
All right. My number 9 is Anything. I mean, I do love the theory of this version of The Damned. Obviously, there's like 2 albums that kind of go together, and it's you know, it's sort of the you know, the most glossy goth period of the band. But I think I agree with most people and that say that essentially the least good songs are on this one versus Phantasmagoria, and it doesn't hold together quite as well. But I love I love the opening song, that the title track, which is a close to a heavy metal kind of song for them. And I think it's just great. And I love the cover of Alone Again, but yeah, a lot of the rest of it is just, sometimes when they get too up tempo and cheery, and yet they're supposed to be in this goth thing, there's some sort of incongruity to it. So yeah, and the production, of course, is very corporate, as it is on Phantasmagoria. But yeah, just not my, Roman Jug's a big part of the band at this point.
Yeah.
Right. But so we've got that. So that's your North American. That's the copy I got in Canada, and then the UK cover is the more colored in version of it, right?
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's my number 9.
Yeah, and not a very happy album. I don't think they were very happy when they were recording about that, but I'll talk more about that when we come to it. Grave Disorder's my next one, 2001. That had his wife, actually, Patricia Morrison on bass, Pinch on drums, and Monty Oxymoron. So that's again, to me, that's a very Britpop sounding album. There are some leanings to punk. It's got a nice production. I don't know, Pinch drumming can be a little bit one-dimensional on some of the songs, but Sensible's guitar work is excellent. He is an incredibly underrated guitarist throughout the course of the band, and it's really funny to think that he was originally the bass player, and then he swapped, and he became such a dynamo on the guitar. I find it lyrically a little bit throwaway compared to some of their other efforts, Martin. I know that there are certain themes that Dave loves to explore, of the Gothic, the dark arts and things like that, but I find this one a bit throwaway. But anyway, that's my next choice, Grave Disorder, 2001.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've got it at number 8. Yeah, the recording's really good on it. The heavy stuff is really heavy sounding. I think the whole deal with this is that, the Damned are perennially an unlucky band. So here they are getting on with Ignite Records, and it's the guy from Offspring that started this label. And I think it crashed in flames soon thereafter. But, early on, there was a lot of enthusiasm at the label. So you get this beautiful digipack, and you get, foil stamping on it, really nice album cover. I agree. I've never really thought about it that much, but you make a really good point, Peter. Like, the lyrics, I don't think are the greatest on it. And it's got a lot of variety. I got to meet the guys in that's why that's why any of my stuff is signed, because I've only met them in person once.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty cool. Patricia Morrison was in the band, Dave's Amour, right? Female bass player, and then she wasn't around for a long time, but yeah, I think it's a pretty solid album. I do play it a fair bit, but yeah, there we go, number 8.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think the thing that has cruelled the damned is because they've never had a stable record label? Because there's been so many record labels they've been on, Martin. I mean, they started off with Stiff, then they went to Pickwick. They were on the Bronze label. Then were on MCA, which aren't really the strongest marketing label. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then they had the Wilderness years on, self-funded and independent. Do you think that's why? I mean, there's a lot of other reasons why they weren't as big as the Clash and the Pistols and the other alumni of the class of 77. But do you think because they didn't have a real stable recording contract with a particular label, that could be part of the reason why they're not,
Yeah, that's part of it. And they just, like I say, have bad luck of all sorts, but then also you make your own luck. And they are truly punk rock personalities. I mean, they are fighting like cats and dogs all the time. They're pretty chaotic. They're wrecking hotel rooms, they're wrecking budgets, burning bridges, with people who could help them out. And they do have a very artistic streak in that they will do whatever they kind of want to do. So the music's kind of all over the place as well. But yeah, I imagine there's a combination of bad luck with those labels and also ticking off the people that they have to work with.
Yeah, I kind of think if they were on Sony or Warner's or something, at the round, their luck may have gone in a different direction. But you're really right. They've had an incredible run of bad luck, and to think technically they were, correct me if I'm wrong, the first English punk band to put a punk single out with New Rose. So
yeah,
they were the first.
And an LP, I believe, and the first UK punk band to tour America.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
so they landed in New York, I believe, and then upstitched and went all the way to LA.
Yeah.
And there was a debacle with Television, I think, who are a New York band, but I think in LA they had that thing with Television, and Television refused to have them open for them or something like that, and they had to scurry together and put together a gig or two, kind of thing. I don't know, I can't remember how many they did, but yeah, they did that, and first punk single and first punk album. But they hadn't been around a long time. I would say, yeah, the Pistols are an older band. I believe the Pistols go back to mid or early 1975 or something, right?
Yeah. But bad luck. Anyway, my next one, a little bit controversial, is Music for Pleasure. Okay. So this was their second album. Unusual producer. I mean, Nick Mason from Pink Floyd. I heard that he was quite fussy, and they were used to the, bam, 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 let's get it done. And he was just, taking his time, setting up the mics and various things like that. Look, I love the first three songs on the album. Problem Child, Don't Cry Wolf, One Way Love, I think is a killer. But for me, the rest of the album feels a little bit underdeveloped in regards to songwriting. It's a little bit of a shame because there are some other songs around this time, like their version of Help is absolutely killer. And, what's the other one? Sick of Being Sick. If that was put on the album, I would have been higher in my rankings. But yeah, for some reason, I know I should like it. It's a truly authentic punk album. It's their second. But other than the first three songs, to me, I don't like it as like some of the other Damned albums, and I don't know why.
Okay. My number 7 is Phantasmagoria. And the funny thing about this one for me is that this is a Damned album that I want to like more. I just love the whole gothic direction and the front cover and the, this whole Stranglers looking feel to the whole thing. I want to like it more, but every time I dissect it, I realize there's quite a few songs that I'm not a big fan of on here. But I think it's pretty cool that they go in this direction, and it's not heavy at all, and it's very big pastoral grand piano sounds on it, and like I say, very very gothic. I mean, they're oddly enough, it really does feel like the Damned just wade in and become one of the bands that is instrumental in inventing goth, even though there was a lot before it. But they just come in, and history has almost like rewritten them into a really high level of importance in the whole invention of goth thing, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it's like I say, it's an album in theory and conceptually. I just love everything about it, which helps elevate the songs. But there's quite a few songs I'm not a big fan of. I love Grimly Fiendish, and I love Street of Dreams, definitely on it. The instrumental Trojans is the instrumental, right? Sanctum Sanctorum is also a pretty cool one as well. I'm not crazy about Shadow of Love, which is sort of a rockabilly kind of thing, which lines up with your Cramps comment earlier, I suppose. It's a little bit of a Cramps song on here. But yeah, there you go. Number 7, Phantasmagoria.
One of the greatest album covers of all time. I love the aesthetics of the band in this era, and I'll talk more about that shortly. But just the imagery of the Damned and how Dave Vanian and the band looked, quite baroque looking. But that album cover, I think it's been ripped off quite a few times, is outstanding. Love it.
Yeah. I've even started drawing up these fake ads and portraits and stuff. And I did a Damned one where I actually stuck in a Charles Delshaw flying machine. Long story about what that is, but I parachuted that into an ad on this, and I've done ads for I think I've done an ad for a single from that one, like an imagined made up ad, and then I did kind of a less imagined one, but just white pencil crayon on gray background of that album with a slightly varied text. So I've done a few. Yeah, you're right. I love that type style. I love that whole front cover thing.
Aesthetics. I mean, 5-star aesthetics. 5 stars. Yeah. I'm going to go a little bit different. There's some albums that you probably like more than you should. And this is Anything. And maybe it's because I had a high entry point with this album. It's far from perfect. It is a really strange album, Martin. There are some intros that go on forever. There's some musical only, I think it's called The Portrait, that just meanders. But the highs on this high are really, really outstanding. Like Anything, to me, it sounds like a little bit like a Cult riff. I'm not sure. I've been listening to it lately, but it sounds a little bit like the Cults. What else is, Alone Again. I love that version, and I think it's better than Love, the original. I prefer the Damned's version of it. Look, if you like the Roman Jug era, I recommend it. It's really high, but it's not a perfect album. It wasn't a very happy album. It's still very baroque. But there's some outstanding, even in Dulce Decorum, I like that song. That actually got picked up and was in an episode of Miami Vice. It's on YouTube. Weird. Damned on a Miami Vice. But I think it's one because I had the entry level. I've got an emotional connection to it, and maybe I forgive a lot about it. So that's why I picked it where I've picked it.
And UFO, of course, covered Alone Again as well in 77 on Lights Out, and then the Damned actually have a bass player, a super important writer bass player in the band who actually goes on and joins UFO briefly.
Yes. Point, right? Yeah. There's always degrees of separation.
Yeah. Kind of weird. Okay. So my next choice is Who's Paranoid? I play this album all the time. It's probably my most played Damned album of the last 10 years. I love the fact that it's not very heavy and it has a lot more classic rock feel to it. It's a really odd one that way. And I remember asking Dave about this one, and he kind of dismisses this album as well, because this is one where he did, he says he did none of the writing essentially on it. So it's an odd one that way, that he's not a writer on it, but it sounds totally like he's writing on it anyways. I mean, you just put his voice on there, and the Damned is so varied and various anyways that, if he didn't write, I don't even notice, and I don't even care that he didn't do much writing on it, because I just love it to death. I play it all the time. I love A Nation Fit for Heroes, Under the Dr. Wolfenstein, especially Since I Met You, totally mellow. And A Danger to Yourself. Yeah. Perfect Sunday. There's so many really cool ones on here. And my funny story with this one is, I'm not a big completist and own anymore everything by everybody. But I do own every Damned album on either CD or vinyl, but not both. But so this is one that I remember seeing in a used bookstore in their rarities cabinet, because they sell CDs and DVDs as well. And it was $29.99. And I asked to look at it one day, and I got ticked off that there's no booklet. It's just the front cover, the mirror, the Uriah Heep look at yourself, and
about to say that.
Queen the Game feel, and then the credits on the back, and that's it. So I passed on it. And then a week or two later, I thought, I got to go back and get that thing. It's the only Damned album I don't have. So I phoned them up and said, is that thing still in that case? I think it was like a long time later.
Yeah.
And they said, yes, it's still in the case. I said, put it aside for me. I'm coming downtown and picking that up. So that's why I left my price sticker on it. $29.99 for this thing I paid, which is, quite a bit of money for a CD. But I thought, I got to have every Damned album. This is crazy. It's the only one I don't have. And I love it to death. And the other reason I held off on getting it is because it's, there's a few Damned albums not on Spotify, and this one for some reason is, and it's a super rare one. It's a weird one to be on Spotify, because you would think with these weird indie releases at that time, that some stuff doesn't. So that's the other reason I held off. It's like Spotify's really dented my head about needing to own everything anymore.
Yeah. Look, this I think I said to you earlier when we first met on this show that it's very hard to get any copies of that. Must have been a limited run. The albums on Discogs or CDs are worth a fortune. So must have been a very limited run. But yeah, nice.
Yeah.
All right. Just goes to show we're disagreeing on a lot of things at the moment. And my next one is Evil Spirits. I actually disagree. I think I saw the tour in 2018 when this came out, and it was really great because we had Paul Gray back in the band, and his bass just lifts everything up. And I thought this was the best album they've done this century. I think Tony Visconti's production's really sparkly. Dave Vanian's crooning is just, he's channeling a lot of the Scott Walker, and I like that. The hooks are infectious, and you even have Captain Sensible doing his little cameo songs, which I like. I think this has got a bit of a lineage back to the Black Album and Strawberries, but hey, we hear different things, and I really dig this album. I think it's really, really strong. Evil Spirits.
Yeah, I saw them around that time here in Toronto. They played the Phoenix, which is a nice fair-sized venue, and it was packed. So it was a really, actually, that's the famous show that Captain Sensible fell off the stage and hurt himself quite bad right at the very end. Oh yeah, you could see that on YouTube. He just walked off the lip of the stage. But the funny thing is, Paul wasn't in the band. I'm positive he wasn't in the band when I saw them. So maybe I'm getting my years wrong, and it was a year or two later or a year earlier or something. But it's odd. He wasn't in the band.
Do they play Canada a fair bit? Do they do the rounds?
No,
they don't.
No. This is a band that doesn't get here very often. So it's too bad. But okay, so my number 5, this might be a little controversial, but I've got the debut down at number 5, quite a few steps down. Loved it as a kid a lot, but it slowly kept going down my running order a little bit, because I do find it just a little too chaotic, and the guitar's a little too astringent on it. Not particularly heavy, but just kind of like clean and distorted, almost like a Steve Howe thing. Weird comparison that just popped into my head. I've never had that thought before, but yeah, I mean, it's very heavy and notorious, and loved it to death. Like I say, in 1977 and 1978, because it is wall to wall, pretty chaotic punk. It really captures the spirit of punk. The heaviness on the music end. I mean, people always have the debate of how punk was the Damned really, in terms of the seriousness and the political. I mean, they're lacking the political end of it, and that's what people sort of, when they were dissing the Damned, that's what they would diss them about, right? Oh, I remember the funny story about how Captain Sensible was ticked off that he wasn't pictured in the band because he's facing away here, and so he asked to have his face stuck on the front of the monitor there in the photo, right?
Well, I guess he's under the floor again, isn't he?
Yeah, right. So, and then there's the whole Eddie and the Hot Rods thing that they had the publicity stunt where, you know, they made the cover in error version of it. But yeah, no, this is a good heavy album, solid album. I love Neat and New Rose, but a lot of the other ones kind of fall down for me. So yeah, it's gone down my running order a little bit. I mean, most people would put it higher, but there you go, number 5.
Again, another 5-star album cover. That's iconic. So, I mean, if you look at the class of 77, that's one of the iconic album covers.
Yeah.
And that's a segue to my iconic album cover, The Damned. So I think you've said it. You know, I think it's got their best album cover. They basically invented the Goth album, the aesthetics. I think the songs are really strong, but they're pop. So Shadow of Love, Street of Dreams, Is It a Dream, Grimly Fiendish. I think they're really picking up a lot of the Kinks, a lot of the late 60s. Bob Mould actually described The Damned as being the Beatles of punk. I thought that was an interesting little bit of an analogy. A lot of keyboards, arrangements. People actually, when they originally are surprised that Eloise was never on this album. That was tacked on afterwards. So a lot of people, I've got both versions, but Eloise was tacked on as you know, track 11, 12, whatever, with extended remixes. So I don't know. I think they recorded that afterwards and released it, and it boosts this album. It's in regards to its sales, but
it's not on my original vinyl.
Yeah, no. But anyway, I like this album. I think it's their best pop album, and it's gothic, but actually a lot of it is Britpop before Britpop. So I can hear a lot of, you know, wouldn't go amiss on a Blur album or some, you know, Pulp or some of those 90s bands that were in the midst of Britpop. And that's another thing I think about The Damned. Maybe they were ahead of their times, and maybe they were just too damn versatile, and that's why they weren't as successful as some of the other bands of the class of 77.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my pick.
Cool. All right. My next pick, so at number 4, is Music for Pleasure. Always loved this album to death. Yeah, the story goes is that they wanted Syd Barrett to produce it. They got Nick Mason instead. I've also heard some disparaging things about Nick being not particularly interested and more studying his auto racing magazines and things like that at the time. But whoever did produce this album, whether it the credit should go to Nick or not, I'm completely contrarian against everybody else. People think it's too behaved and too well produced. I thirsted and you know, and hungered for that great production. So to me, I love the production on this. I don't think it's particularly glossy at all. I think it's just plain plunked better than the first one. I think the material is similar to the first one, and so with this production, I think it's just a winning combination. And I agree, I love Problem Child. Don't Cry Wolf is a little more musical than anything on the first album, but One Way Love's heavy, and Stretcher, you know, all Idiot Box I just love to death. I just think that's one of the it's so musical and tasty and unexpected. It literally might be my favorite song on the whole album. But I love the sort of minimalist you know, crouch down to the verse thing you get with Problem Child and You Take My Money. Both of those have this kind of innovative structure to them. Alone, Your Eyes is another one that just has that great 60s pop, dependable Louie chord situation thing. And You Know is a good dark, heavy one at the end. So yeah, I just always loved this album. 1978, like I say, I freaked out when I saw that in the racks. I'm just reading this here and going, what does that say? It says The Damned. Yeah, cool. Yeah. A new Damned album, completely by surprise in the racks. You know, one of Barney Bubble's greatest album covers, famous for Hawkwind and Elvis Costello and Ian Dury, and that unfortunately had some mental health problems and he committed suicide. But yeah, that's one of the great Barney Bubbles artworks. So yeah, maybe I'm a little contrary on that because I remember the critics at the time savaged it. They just didn't think it was that great, and then the band themselves lost confidence in it as well. But I just think it takes everything we are supposed to love about the debut and just cleans it up, which is what I wanted.
I'm actually surprised because I had it in my head that you were going to pick that as number one, Martin. So
Yeah, close.
So
Yeah,
you've actually pulled the rug from under my feet a little bit because I had in my head Martin's going to pick that out for number one. So I'm
honestly
interested. Yeah.
Honestly, Peter, I'm looking at my list and I'm you know, I know it's a bit of a cop out, but my last four are there's the big step up is to the last four, and it's almost like a four-way tie at this point.
Okay, all right. I'm looking forward to it. As album covers go for my next one, it's pretty simple. It's the Black Album. And this is a single version of it, the Japanese one. I know I've got the Black Album on CD, which is the 2 CD or the double album, and it had Curtain Call and the live side. But look, this is when they're fully in their Psyche period, exploring atmospherics. It's epic. You know, there's still a lot of Britpop, like Waiting for the Blackout. There's Punk. History of the World's a killer song. But I love Curtain Call. I find that quite melancholy, a lot of drama. Yeah, I think that's an outstanding song. But yeah, the Black Album, this is where they were really starting to stretch out in the experimenting, you know, the musical palette, and Captain Sensible's really just laying it out. So that's my choice.
Cool. Yeah. So my next choice is the Black Album as well. And there's my Canadian copy of it that I bought as a new release as a kid, or what would I have been, 19 years old, something like that. And there's the 2 CD version. So with the, you know, I guess is that the original UK album cover, I believe?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And we got this one. You threw me for a loop there with the Japanese one. So the Japanese one's completely black?
It is. It's a bit,
and that's like what
and,
it was.
And it's like the Beatles. You see how it's got that little.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so I'm embarrassed to say this, but up until just a few years ago, I didn't even know Curtain Call existed, which is really bizarre. You know, in the information age, well, you know, I mean, I grew up loving this stuff before there was an information age, but our Canadian version never had Curtain Call. And for some reason, that information completely slipped my mind up until just a few years ago. And here I am. I've actually written a damned book, and it's actually the greatest book I ever wrote. It's not out yet, but it's coming out soon through Weimer. It's called Lively Arts, The Damned Deconstructed, I believe. And it's essentially like my Led Zeppelin and Clash book, where I just write 400 to 500 word reviews of every single song the Damned ever did, including all the B-sides and all that stuff, right? So I love the Damned to death, and here I am, like, I didn't even know Curtain Call, all 13 minutes or whatever it is, even existed, because I had this version, which is just a single album version of the thing. You know, when this record first came out, I didn't like it very much because it was too mellow. I mean, I had a one-track mind as a kid. You know, we're right in the heat of the new wave of British heavy metal. Machine Gun, Etiquette, well, all three of them were heavy up to this point, and this was not a very heavy album. But I love it now. You know, I love this whole Paul Gray era of the band, where he's in on the writing, and it's just got a lot of variety. This is where they really, for the first time, embrace their 60s garage rock and psych influences. Yes. And so over time, it's been a real grower and a player for me. So that's my number 3.
So it's gone up the charts. Yeah. I agree. No, that's a killer. Another thing about the Damned, how many great songs have they done that are just B-sides and never made albums?
Yeah.
So many, and their cover versions, like White Rabbit, that's a killer version. You know, so many. I've got quite a few Damned compilations. I haven't got it near me to show, but of the Damned and their B-sides, and yeah, they just try anything, and they just put their own spin and their own style. It's fantastic.
And absolutely top of the list for me you know, and I could see putting either of them in my top 10 Damn songs easily, would be Burglar and Suicide.
Yeah.
You know, Suicide on from that EP, just raging heavy rock and heavy
Yeah.
metal song, essentially very chaotic too at the drum end,
Yeah.
but yet not standard, you know, Rat
And
Keith
and,
Moon
and
chaotic.
didn't make the album. Yeah. I
Yeah,
like
and Burglar with its hilarious sound effects, you know, the beginning and the end, and some really comedic lines in it, and that really heavy English, I don't know if it's Cockney or whatever
yeah.
accent, but
Yeah.
just a good rockin' song and a really funny one as well. So
Yeah. My favorite is probably Thanks for the Night. I think that's a
all
really,
right.
I love that. And the drum beat's just a little bit behind, but it kicks it along.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I really like it. That a lot. Okay, my next one is Damn Damn Damned. So there you have
Okay.
it. I think it contains 2 or 3 of the finest punk songs ever. You know, New Rose is killer. It's probably my favorite punk song. It's 2 minutes of bliss. It's direct. You know, probably, as I said, the first English punk single. Brian James's guitar work is great. Rat Scabies drum fills are killer. Nick Lowe did the production on this. I like it. You know, I know Neat 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 fan club. Yeah, look, I think it's a timeless album, and I would stack this against the Clash debut or maybe the Sex Pistols. I think it's outstanding, and that's probably, yeah, it's one of my favorite Damned albums. Damn, damn, damn.
Yeah, creatively fearless and incredible, and nothing else sounds like it, right? You
Rowdy,
know.
bawdy, energetic. I mean, you know, like the Pistols were snotty nose, Clash were political, but the Damned, they could do both. And I know you said that they weren't political. There is a lot of social commentary, but I think it's behind humor, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of gallows humor. There's a lot of outrageous humor, and it's through Captain Sensible. He's a very switch. I mean, you've interviewed him. He's very sharp, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
A lot of humor.
Yeah. Okay, my number 2 choice is Strawberries.
Right.
There we are with the Captain Won't Eat Me. He wrote that on there when he signed this.
Yep.
Yeah, I love this to death. I mean, of the you know, the 2 Paul Gray album, you know, duology there. I love Stranger on the Town and The Dog. Gun Fury, Pleasure in the Pain is one of my favorites. You know, Life Goes On is also one of my favorites. So you know, again, I think there's a theme with me, that I like more of the darker, poppier, Stranglers-y kinds of things that the Damned do. I mean, that's kind of my favorite material of the Damned, probably, if you were to assign a trend to it. Don't Bother Me is hilarious. I mean, it's just such a cool thing with that weird beat, and then Dave's laconic delivery of those laconic lyrics. And yeah, the cover art is absolutely classic. Very cool. So to me, this just feels like that whole Black Album chemistry, but just better, more chemistry, I think, to it. And it's a little less disjointed, and it just feels like the songwriting came easy to them, even though, as usual, as in all eras, they're fighting like cats and dogs, even during this. And Paul can be a little bit you know, dismissive of this whole, you know, remembering this period and fighting over song credits and things like that, unfortunately. But yeah, what a great record. And again, one of these very varied, creatively fearless, you know, proving that these guys are like real music freaks and musicologists and music nerds and really know what they're doing, and being brave with it.
It's a brilliant album. It's really funny, as we've gone through this show today. We've gone through our twists and turns, but we've ended up in the final the same 2 in different ways. So mine's Machine Gun Etiquette. So it was a real toss up between Strawberries and Machine Gun Etiquette, but this is class. This is high quality. It's got some of their greatest punk pop songs ever. Love Song, Smash It Up. Lyrically very sharp. The Captain Sensible melodies are just out of this world, and it's got some great social commentary. Anti-Pope. I love Melody Lee. Actually, when they came out and did Australia in 2018, and they had Paul Gray in the band, they actually played this album from start to finish, and then they did a little bit of their current album. So that was just a real joy to hear them play it from start to finish, and it just sparkles live. Algie Ward, Tank on bass.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great bass playing, and this should have broken them worldwide, Martin, but it, maybe it was bad timing, but this is, yeah, it's outstanding. I think it's a really strong album. Yeah. And that's my number 2.
All right. Well, I'm going to disagree with most of what you said there about this album, because it's funny you say class and high quality. It's almost like it's that way in an artistic way, and obviously we both got it super high, and music fans love it, and it kind of wins the polls as the greatest Damned album. But it's almost like class and high quality are way at the other end of what this album is, because it's so raw and heavy and just trundling, chaotic and punky. So the class and high quality of it is a very abstract notion, because it's very, very abrasive. And the other thing I'll disagree with is when you said this should have broken them big, for the same reason. It's just very, very it's not commercial at all. I can see deep down somewhere in there's some commercial writing going on, and you're right, there's some great melodies and stuff, but with Algie in there and Rat just like drumming up a firestorm, it's like, it's not the kind of album that's going to be a big commercial album. And if it's, and if it breaks, it's the kind of album that if it actually did break the band big, you'd be applauding, the music masses for being able to see past all the ugliness of it. It's just so heavy and powerful and dirty, throughout. And just, you notice that even just the way Love Song comes in, like just the screaming and the drums and the really distorted bass. And then this song is fast, and it's kind of simple in a way, but the chord changes are not simple. It's just got a darkness to it. Again, to me, this is almost like, I love when the Damned do the Stranglers, and this is almost like the Damned doing an imagined heavy version of the Stranglers in a way, because you do get the, the Dave Greenfield keyboards out of nowhere, feeling from it sometimes, but it's basically a really heavy album. We hated as kids, we hated Smash It Up. And it's still to me, that's almost like one of the weakest things on the album. I don't like the lack of groove to it and the hepped up kind of claustrophobic drum beat to it, or the Farfisa sounding keyboards on it. But I mean, so much of the rest of it. Love Song is amazing. Machine Gun Etiquette, one of the heaviest songs they ever did. I Just Can't Be Happy Today. Again, heavy Stranglers, that says to me. I love Melody Lee and Auntie Pope. These Hands are amazing for a completely, mellow carnival, demented doors sort of thing on that one. Yep. With the sound effects. Plan 9, Channel 7, again, reminds me of something that I would love to hear. It's got kind of a Stranglers vibe to it again. And Liar is like Suicide. It's just this really heavy, raucous, drinking,
very rowdy.
Rowdy. Yeah, rowdy is a perfect word for it. So yeah, that's my number 1 choice. Yeah. And I just think it almost captures all the absolutely anarchic, punk, chaotic emotions from the first album and just amps it right up. It really feels like the follow-up to the first album in a way. Yeah. And let's not forget the band is already broken up and reformed by this point once. Yes, very fractious, but interesting take. Maybe we got slightly different entry points in regards to it, but I can see like some of those. I know Smash It Up and Love Song got played on sort of commercial music shows in Australia. It was like a countdown. I don't know what the equivalent was in Canada, but it seemed to fit in with the times because there was a lot of new wave. And I can see there's grit and there's dirt, but a lot of it to my ears, sort of fits in with that era. And that's why I guess I sort of said it classic. My number 1
obviously is The Damned and Strawberries. I love this. This is one of my favorite albums of all time. I love it. And I like the album cover where they've got, the juxtaposition between the strawberry and the pig. So they're sort of saying strawberry. We've got some nice little pop convention on this album, but at the end of the day, we're still rowdy and we're still messy, and the pig, squashing all the strawberries. So I find that quite an interesting little album cover. It's got some beautiful melodies on this, and I find this. Actually, some of the melodies on this album, I find this quite emotionally affecting, like The Dog. I know it's inspired by an Anne Rice vampire tale, but Dave Vanian's crooning on it and the melody and just beautiful. I love Under the Floor again, the great guitar work on it. I love Don't Bother Me. I find this album a little bit sad. It kind of affects me in that way because I feel like it's a goodbye album, because Captain Sensible was going on this novelty route. He had a bit of a career in the UK, and Happy Talk went to #1. And I think in a way that he was leaving the band. And I find that there's a lot of melancholy on this album through the melodies and some of the lyrics. And in a way, it was like Captain Sensible just he was in a very bad funk at this point in time, and it's his way of, I don't know, just leaving the band. So I find a lot of sadness. It's got a lot of Britpop. It's got a lot of 60s garage. I like Generals. Ignite is a great opener, Martin. Like, that's like punk gusto. That's an outstanding song. Dozen Girls. Strangers on the Town, I know I just mentioned that. That's kind of got even a Northern soul type feel with the sax and the horns. Yeah. And there's a little bit of Stones guitar. There's a bit of riffage, Pleasure and Pain, Life Goes On. Oh, what about Life Goes On? Hasn't that been cribbed a bit, Martin? Killing Joke, Nirvana.
Right. Yeah. True. Exactly. Yep. Yep. They talk about that. I love what you say about this being an emotional album. I mean,
I find it very emotional.
Yeah.
I get really stirred up by this album.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I mean, I think that's also then what I love about it so much, to put it at #2. It's the one that seems to have the most emotional impact on me of all of them.
Yeah, and they're a band that is supposed to be snotty, rowdy, the problem kids sort of thing. And you've got this album, and it kind of really affects me emotionally, and I don't know why. I feel the hairs on the back of my neck go up on some of the melodies. It's just beautiful confection. So it's an underrated classic, and should have done a lot better than it did. It was on the Bronze label, and other than Motorhead, they were the only band that really did any good on Bronze label. But it's just timing, and it should have been a lot bigger, but I love it. I just think it's one of my favorite albums of all time, and I love it to bits.
Great. Very cool. Wow.
Well, there you go. That was fun, Martin. We had this twists and turns, but we got to the same point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
Well, we'll do this again sometime. We'll do another band and rank the discography. Hey everyone, tell me what you think of, what are your favorite Damned albums? Do you agree with our rankings? Please subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation, leave your comments, and we'll catch up with you real soon. Cheers.